For the longest time in history, the characters of heroes and villains were mostly drawn from the black and white portrayal of them in religious scripture. The basis of morality was formed around Abrahamic religions. Therefore, literature represented characters as entirely virtuous or entirely evil, so there was no room for more nuance and more grey, humane characters. In the past century, we have witnessed villains going through a gradual evolution. From entirely evil and entirely driven by the destruction and for the destruction, we saw that if there is a small dose of virtue and righteousness within them, they prove to be much more effective in capturing the audience. Modernity has cut through the old portrayal of solid binary characters of good and evil. The age of information has shown us the hypocrisy and the depth of evil each human being is capable of. In return, we have started rejecting the inhumane portrayals of evil. The gradual shift from one-dimensional characters into more nuanced depictions was the first step towards a new era of entertainment, literature, or perhaps human behavior. The new short series of HBO, The Penguin, isn't the first nor will be the last portrayal of such nuanced characters, but it is nonetheless one of the most successful reimaginations of an otherwise rock-solid villain. In this video, we will delve deep into what made Penguin into who he was, and how nature and nurture together help shape up the most potentially evil creatures of our existence, humans. So think with yourself, when exactly did Oswald's descent into villainy really begin? He was a young boy who grew up without a father, had a limp foot, constantly ridiculed and challenged because of it. He had indirectly caused the death of his own two brothers over a simple mockery, seemingly with no remorse at all. So it points us, the audience, towards a question. Is he a totally psychopathic killer, genetically set up for death and destruction, or he is simply a product of his own circumstances? But at the same time, Oswald shows us that he can still show mercy. He can still be kind in his own twisted way. Right from the first episode, we are introduced to Wick, and how Oswald immediately sees Wick's weakness and condition of stuttering as a reminder of his own childhood. The Penguin has empathy for those who experienced similar tragedies to himself. He sees himself in Wick, and that makes him not to take his life. From his poverty and lack of power, to looking up to the gangsters of his neighborhood, an occasional sign of virtue for those who are weak and innocent. You see right there you have various political motivations, anti-monopolistic sentiments and so forth. But all that stuff is really at the mercy of your subject's prejudice. The only way you have to do it is to start at the absolute basic, the relationship with the mother. Penguin's dysfunctional relationship with his mother is not entirely in the open for the viewer. It slowly unfolds over time. But for some of you, there were many signs inside the show as early as the first episode. The first time we see Penguin's mother, it strikes us as a typical Italian mob-parental relationship. Something that perhaps reminds us of characters like Tony Soprano, a son with a promise to protect and provide for his mother to fulfill his obligations as a child, usually accompanied with the absence of the father during his childhood. But something happens in this scene. Something that immediately makes the dominoes fall. A sudden shift in power dynamic happens. His mother takes every bit of assertiveness he has, calls him a big pussy, followed by reassuring him of his worth and righteousness. The positive way of looking at it is to say his mother is being supportive of her child, but in reality this is the first time we are witnessing a devouring mother coming out. The sudden shift in dynamic hints us at something much deeper. It's as if Oswald Cobblepot is not an autonomous being, he is only a vessel for his mother's wishes and desires. Jung describes the devouring mother archetype as a mother who loves her child selfishly rather than selflessly. A mother who protects, controls and smothers her child to the point of destroying or essentially blocking their path to growth as an individual. A child who will develop a sense of codependency, lack of confidence in their own sense of self, and ultimately at best find themselves in devotion to their obligations as a child, and at worst an empty shell of a human being. The devouring mother, because of her own inner fear of abandonment, grows into the psyche of the child as a parasite, feeding on their agency and autonomy for reassurance. Achieved through constant control and supervision, the child will grow with a lack of self-reliance, always depending on the mother for a source of validation and unconditional love. His mother doesn't see him as her child, she sees him as an extension of herself, as a vessel to reach everything she couldn't on her own, going as far as implying that maybe every decision made by the Penguin throughout the series is indirectly called by his mother, Frances. This pattern is very much visible in Oswald's other relationships. His only romantic relationship is with Eve. Eve is a sex worker with direct ties to criminal underbelly of Gotham. A relationship completely based on transactional value. So in retrospect, yes, Penguin might have had natural tendencies toward vengeance and violence. Yes, he might have had enough predispositions to develop as a dependent child due to his condition. But Frances Cobb was the one who decided his fate. She couldn't forgive him for what he did. She couldn't let her only child die either. So she decided to live through him, use the resentment as justification for manipulative behavior, and use her love as leverage to steer him. The Penguin's descent into villainy did not begin when he killed the son of a crime lord. It didn't even begin with indirectly killing his own two brothers. And no, it wasn't even what happened in this scene. It was actually right in this moment that Oswald Cobblepot had started his process of becoming the Penguin. It was right in this moment that he signed the contract with the devil to sell his soul. In the final episode, the viewer finally gets enough information about the depth of Penguin's nature. His mother had a stroke, she couldn't talk nor react to him anymore. His god was finally dethroned, pushing him to the depth of his own emptiness. And as a cherry on top, the closing scene of the finale has a sick twist. The Penguin is dancing with Eve. Eve is wearing his mother's dress, and the Penguin is referring to her as mother, hinting at the fact that Oswald Cobblepot is entirely gone now, and the remains is an empty shell of a human being that is the Penguin. Overall, The Penguin is one of those shows that still reminds us of the fact that human stories and nuanced characters are not going anywhere. It shows us the narrow line between good and evil, and how kindness can be corruptive and lead to destruction, and how weakness at times can give birth to unprecedented evil. It perfectly intertwines the role of nature and nurture in shaping up a villain. It presents itself as a moral quandrum, and the amazing contrast this character has compared to other villains. Sofia Falcone was extremely destructive in her behavior, but she still remained somewhat virtuous in her core. Her lack of trust in people was completely warranted with the monster of a father she had. And even her sole source of security and love, her brother, was complicit in her suffering. Victor, everybody's favorite character, was a typical spineless man who allowed his greed and lack of agency drive him into villainy. All these characters and their differences make us question the boundaries of morality. To what extent we can have empathy for these characters, to what extent we can predict their behavior. And finally, for a self-conscious mind, it offers an introspection to our own thoughts and behaviors. Thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be seeing you.